They called him suspicious for sitting, quietly, in his truck. Said his jacket looked too official for someone like him, an old man, black, alone. The officers didn't ask questions. They dragged him out, slammed him onto the hood, and cuffed him like a criminal. He didn't resist, didn't shout. But what he said next will shock you. He just said one sentence that made everyone pause: call the number in my phone labeled Pentagon, and do it before you ruin your careers. They laughed, but 10 minutes later, their radios crackled with a voice they weren't prepared to hear. And by the time the black SUV pulled up outside the station, it was too late to undo the damage. If you believe real respect is earned, not guessed by age or skin, drop a comment below and subscribe to Dignity Diaries. This story deserves to be remembered. Albert Al Reading wasn't trying to stand out. He never did. At 74, with faded jeans, a brown service jacket, and a quiet presence, Al blended in like worn brick on an old wall. That morning, he'd left the VA clinic 2 towns over with a refill for his heart meds and a folded thank you letter from a young doctor who recognized the patch on his sleeve, 101st Airborne, Vietnam 68. He didn't ask for praise. He just smiled, tipped his cap, and said, "Appreciate it, Doc." The drive back was long but peaceful, until a rumble in his stomach reminded him of Ruby's Diner off Route 9. He pulled into the gravel lot just before dusk. The place hadn't changed in 40 years, same neon sign buzzing, same checkered floor he used to mop as a teenager before enlisting. Al parked his beat-up Ford pickup near the back, the license plate still bearing his old veteran tag. He sat for a moment, watching the horizon fade from gold to purple, hands resting on the steering wheel. A song from his youth played low on the radio, Sam Cooke, "A Change Is Gonna Come." But what happened next will leave you speechless. 2 local patrol officers sat in their cruiser near the front, windows cracked, half watching. One of them, young and twitchy, nudged the other, "Hey, that guy's been sitting there too long." The other shrugged, "He looking for something?" The younger cop narrowed his eyes, "Or hiding something?" They didn't recognize the insignia, didn't care about the plates. All they saw was an old black man in an oversized coat, in the wrong place, looking too calm for their comfort. Inside the diner, Al greeted the waitress with a nod. "Just coffee tonight," he said gently, choosing a booth by the window. The place was quiet, a couple eating pie, a tired trucker scrolling his phone. No one noticed the squad car repositioning near the exit, but Al did. He'd seen that look before, back in 71 at a checkpoint outside Pleiku, young men with weapons and too much fear in their eyes. He didn't expect trouble, but he knew how fast it could find you. Al stepped outside just after 7:30 p.m., the night air sharp with autumn chill. He adjusted his jacket, pulled his cap down low, and reached for the driver's side door. Behind him, gravel crunched. "Hey, sir," a voice barked, too forceful to be polite, "step away from the vehicle." Al turned slowly. 2 officers stood 10 feet away, one older, one younger, the second gripping a flashlight like a weapon, its beam landing square on Al's chest. "Evening," Al said calmly, hands visible. "Everything all right, officers?" The older one, badge reading Ramsey, took a step forward. "That your truck?" "Yes, sir." "Mind telling us what you were doing out here?" "Stopped for a coffee." The younger one added, voice sharper, "You've been sitting out here for a while. What's in your jacket?" Al raised his hands a little. "Cold evening. Nothing in the jacket but memories." That didn't land well. The younger one scoffed, "License and ID." Al moved slowly, speaking each word with care. "It's in my left pocket." "Military ID, too." Ramsey tensed, real slow. Al pulled out his wallet, opened it, and handed over the ID card, faded but clear, name, service number, a picture of a younger version of the man standing before them. The older officer glanced at it, then at Al. "Nice print job," he muttered. "You buy this online?" Al blinked once. "Excuse me?" The younger officer, badge reading Holt, chimed in. "You don't look like a paratrooper to me." There it was, not curiosity, not protocol, just disbelief wrapped in contempt. "I served in Vietnam, 101st Airborne," Al said plainly, Bronze Star. "I got paperwork in the glove box if you want to check." But Holt was already circling the truck, back of the car, hands flat. "Now." Al's voice didn't waver. "On what grounds?" Ramsey stepped forward, tension snapping like wire. You questioning us? No, sir. I'm asking for due process. That was all it took. Ramsey grabbed his arm. Holt pulled cuffs from his belt. Al didn't resist, but his voice, quiet and certain, cut through the dark. Call the number in my phone marked Pentagon. You'll want to do it now. They didn't, not yet. The cuffs locked in with a click that echoed louder than the night. Al's face didn't change, his breath visible in the cold. He allowed himself to be turned, pressed against the hood of his own truck, the same one he'd rebuilt with his grandson last summer. Impersonating a decorated veteran, Ramsey growled. Holt pulled open the cruiser door, grinning like a man proud of a prize. Al didn't flinch, didn't fight. Years in uniform had taught him something these boys had never learned: real strength is allowed. A voice called out from the diner steps, Dale, what the hell are you doing? Jenny, the night waitress, stood frozen, apron still on, coffee pot forgotten in her hand. She'd seen Al every few months for years, always quiet, always kind. She'd seen the patch on his jacket, the way he held the door for old ladies, the way he always tipped exactly 50%, for the ones who didn't come back, he once said. He's a veteran, she said, stepping closer, I've seen his ID. You're making a mistake. Ramsey turned toward her, puffed up with false authority, back inside, ma'am. This doesn't concern you. But it did. People were watching now, a teenage girl filming with her phone from the gas station across the street, a pair of truckers with arms folded standing outside their rigs, even the cook from Ruby's stepped out, wiping his hands on a towel, brow furrowed. Al met Jenny's eyes, didn't say a word, he didn't need to. They pushed him into the cruiser, hard. The door slammed, the night muffled. Inside the vehicle, leather seats creaked as Ramsey and Holt high-fived up front, congratulating each other on a clean takedown. Al sat quietly in the back, wrists burning but back straight. He looked out the window at Ruby's neon glow fading behind him. In his pocket, his phone remained untouched. On the lock screen, a photo of Al in uniform, arm around his late wife, both smiling outside Fort Campbell. His voice finally broke the silence inside the cruiser. Before you get too proud of yourselves, he said, calm as ever, call that Pentagon number. The woman who answers used to report to me. The laughter stopped, but the damage had already begun. The Greystone police station sat behind a faded courthouse, squat and gray, like it had grown tired of pretending to care. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Holt marched Al through the front entrance. The desk sergeant didn't even glance up, just slid a clipboard across the counter. Impersonation of a federal officer, Holt muttered with smug certainty, resisting, too. Al said nothing. He'd marched through jungles with shrapnel in his leg and carried dying men across mud rivers. This was nothing but noise. They put him in a holding room, cinder block walls, metal chair bolted to the floor, cuffed to the table like a threat. His jacket was tossed in the corner, his cap on the floor. Ramsey lounged near the doorway, coffee in hand, already talking big, going to be on the news for this one, he told Holt, maybe a commendation. Holt laughed, loud and unfiltered, you see that badge? Looked like it came from a Halloween shop. Al sat still, breathing slow, watching the clock tick toward midnight. Then the door creaked, not slammed, creaked. An older man stepped in, badge crooked on his chest, sleeves rolled halfway up, Chief of Police Ed Callahan, tired eyes and a permanent wince, like life had given him too many late nights. He held Al's wallet in his hand, flipping the ID back and forth. This say you're retired First Sergeant Albert reading? Al nodded once, that's correct. Bronze Star, Vietnam? Yes. And these two say you faked it. Callahan turned to Ramsey, you verify the ID? Ramsey shrugged, could be fake. No one dresses like that without trying to get attention. Callahan frowned, or maybe it's you two who need retraining. He tossed the wallet onto the table and folded his arms. I got a voicemail from someone in D.C., a woman who sounded like she eats kernels for breakfast. Said, you've got a number in that phone we'd better call. Al met his gaze, top right label says Pentagon. You'll want it on speaker. Callahan hesitated, but curiosity outweighed arrogance. He dialed 3 rings. Then a clipped voice answered, Office of Deputy Secretary Hargrove. Ramsey paled, Holt stopped smirking, and everything started to shift. Callahan cleared his throat. This is Chief Ed Callahan of the Greystone Police Department. I've got a man here claiming, the voice on the other end cut him off like a blade through rope. Chief Callahan, this is Deputy Secretary Ella Hargrove. Where is Sergeant Reading? Ramsey and Holt froze. Al sat quietly, posture straight, a calm storm building in his gaze. Callahan tried to salvage the moment. We had reason to believe he was impersonating. You detained a decorated war veteran, Hargrove snapped. You ignored his ID, you cuffed him, humiliated him, and now you're calling me because he asked you nicely? The room went silent. You have no idea who that man is, she continued, voice steel through the speaker. He served under fire while you were still learning to spell chain of command. He trained half the men who briefed the Joint Chiefs today, and you treated him like a threat because of his skin and his silence. Ramsey's mouth twitched, Holt backed up, the color draining from his face. You will release him, Hargrove said, right now, or I will have MPs at your door in 20 minutes and a call into your governor before sunrise. Is that clear? Callahan nodded before realizing she couldn't see him. Yes, ma'am. The cuffs fumbled open seconds later. Al flexed his wrists, slow and steady, like he'd done 1,000 push-ups on worse ground. Ramsey tried to mutter something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but Al raised a hand. Save it. I gave you a chance to do the right thing. Callahan extended the wallet back. Sergeant, this was a mistake. Al took it, his voice low. No, a mistake is forgetting a name. This was a choice. He stood taller than before, not physically, but something in the air around him shifted. Ramsey stepped back. Callahan asked, is there anything else we can do? Al looked at him. Start by training your men to see a uniform, even when the skin underneath doesn't match their picture. Then he walked out, not rescued, not saved, but restored by truth. By the time Al pulled back onto the highway, the town behind him looked exactly the same, but it wasn't. The girl across the street had uploaded her video 1 minute and 14 seconds, shaky footage of a quiet old man being slammed against his truck, his calm voice, his warning, call the number marked Pentagon. It hit TikTok before sunrise. By 9 a.m., it had 2 million views. By noon, national news anchors were saying his name, Sergeant Albert Reading, Bronze Star, 101st Airborne, Vietnam. At Ruby's Diner, Jenny stood behind the counter, jaw clenched, as reporters shoved mics toward her. I told them he was a vet. I told them. Photos of Al in his younger days flooded the internet, uniformed, medals pinned, hand over heart. People shared their own stories. My dad served with him in Da Nang. He helped me fix my ramp after my stroke. He never asked for anything. The police department shut down comments on its social pages by noon, then deleted them altogether. Protests formed outside Greystone PD by sunset, signs that read, you saw color, not courage, he survived war zones, not your ignorance, respect is earned, and he earned it. Callahan tried to hold a press conference, but his voice cracked under the weight. We are reviewing procedures. No one cared. The crowd didn't want reviews, they wanted consequences. Ramsey was placed on immediate leave, so was Holt. Their pasts were dragged into the light body cam footage, internal complaints, moments everyone once ignored, now they were headlines. Meanwhile, at Fort Campbell, a bulletin went out, retired First Sergeant Albert Reading, recognized for service and conduct under duress. It wasn't about medals, Al didn't care for more pens, but it meant something to every young soldier reading it, especially the ones who looked like him. Back home, Al sat on his porch as the sun dipped low. His phone buzzed with calls, messages, praise. He didn't respond to most. But when Jenny sent a photo of the protest, her standing strong, holding a sign with his picture, he finally smiled, not because he needed recognition, but because someone saw him. And this time, the whole country did, too. Greystone changed, not all at once, but enough that you could feel it. The town council held emergency meetings, the mayor gave a tight-lipped statement, but real change didn't come from them. It came from the people who watched Al stand tall with cuffs on his wrists and couldn't forget it. The police chief, Ed Callahan, stepped down 2 weeks later, a quiet resignation letter, a line about accountability, and a handshake no one wanted. His replacement, a black woman from Richmond with a record of community-first leadership, her first order of business, mandatory bias training, community review boards, and full transparency of body cam records. At Greystone High, history teachers added a segment on modern veterans, not just the battles they fought, but the battles they returned home to. One slide had AL's picture, captioned, "Courage doesn't retire." Churches started hosting town halls. Cops and teens sat in the same folding chairs, talking about what respect looked like and what it didn't. People brought coffee. Jenny spoke at the first one. Her voice shook, but her spine didn't. "I knew who he was." Why didn't they? Meanwhile, Al kept his distance. He didn't want parades, didn't need medals, he'd had enough ceremonies in his lifetime. But when a young lieutenant from Fort Campbell reached out, asking to meet, he agreed. They met at the same diner. Al in his jacket, the lieutenant in dress blues. They didn't talk about war, they talked about what comes after. "They'll test me," the young man admitted, "because of how I look, because I'm quiet." Al nodded slowly. "They will. And they'll be loud, but don't match their noise, match their excellence." He slid a napkin across the table, a name written in pen, Pentagon Contact. "Friend of mine. Not for skipping steps, just for when they pretend you don't belong." The young man looked at it like gold. Al stood to leave, tossing a few bills on the table. "Stand tall," he said just before the door closed behind him, "they'll learn one way or another." And just like that, the story moved forward, not ended, but passed on. Months passed, winter softened, but the story didn't fade. Al Reading never gave interviews, didn't go on morning shows. He let the footage, the cuffs, the calm voice, the Pentagon call speak for itself. He didn't need to explain dignity, he had lived it. At home, he kept a drawer with his medals, a faded flag, and the phone that started it all. He never changed the contact, it still read Pentagon. Jenny called sometimes, not to talk about the past, but to tell him the diner now offered discounts to all veterans. They hung a framed photo of Al by the front window. She said kids pointed at it now and asked, "Is that the man from the story?" One morning, Al sat on his porch, thermos in hand, watching frost fade from the grass. His wife's chair sat empty beside him, but he could still hear her voice. "Hold your fire, Al. It burns brighter that way." He didn't know how long he'd keep getting messages from strangers, but they kept coming, veterans who felt seen, sons and daughters who now understood what quiet strength looked like. One message stood out, from a retired colonel in Florida. It said simply, "I served beside you once. I remember. Thank you for standing tall when they couldn't see." He printed it, folded it, put it in the drawer next to his bronze star. As for Ramsey and Holt, they didn't bounce back. Holt vanished from town, his social media scrubbed. Ramsey, seen bagging groceries at a local mart. The same people who once ignored Al now avoided Ramsey's eyes. No rage, no revenge, just a shift. That's how poetic justice lands when it's done right, not loud, but lasting. That night, Sheila's old gospel playlist came on. One track echoed louder than the rest. "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Al chuckled to himself, not out of pride, but peace. Because sometimes, all it takes is one quiet man to remind the world what respect looks like and who truly deserves it. If this story made you pause, if it reminded you that real heroes don't wear ego, they wear scars, silence, and history, then hit that like button to honor every veteran who never asked for praise. Comment below where you're watching from and if you've ever met someone like Al. And if you believe these stories deserve to be remembered, subscribe to Dignity Diaries, not for us, but for them.